So, I was going to do a video just a little bit ago, a few days ago, because I just recently finished a project, 2 year long project with my cousin, and I was feeling inspired to do stuff. And then I got sick, and then it didn't happen. So, now we're here. I was doing the casual kind of conversation with my cousin, the typical things that you find yourself talking about every day, right? Like, what's the best way to convert a town into a staging point for world domination? What are the core pillars that people look for in romantic relationships, and how do you maximize those? How charismatic can you be before you put into question free will? How does propositions affect ontology? And why do people give me weird looks when I refer to actions as dialogue options? The classic stuff, but it was that second to last one that got me thinking, what is the best way to instill habits? Now, I, for one, have a really tough time instilling habits. I'm super good at, doing actions for a reasonable amount of time, and even just, putting my head down and committing to an action. That's how I got to be able to do videos for, 120 plus days in a row. But I struggle really hard for getting them to stick, right? A habit is one of those things that stick, and it's like, okay, life can get a little shaky and whatnot. Things can get a little bit hectic. You might get off of your schedule for a little bit, but habits are the things that you... burp. Habits are the things that you, that stick with you, So, how do you instill those, right? So I was thinking about it, and it's like, okay, well, what habits do I have, and what habits have I tried to instill, and what was the big problem with them? And after thinking for a while, I think I came to a solution. You see, the habits that have stuck with me are the habits that I've paired with other habits, right? So you have habits that you naturally generate from going about life with any kind of routine. You just eventually get habits, right? And then there's habits that you want to add to your system. Okay, those are habits that you're enforcing and, imposing onto yourself. And I was wondering, how do you get those second ones? Because the first one is you just work about a routine long enough, you get them. I was wondering how you could curate specific habits that you want to instill into, your morning routine or something like that. And what I found was that the best way to create a habit was to pair it with another habit. And the reason for doing this is because it gives you some kind of foundation support, a thing that new habit can attach to. So that if life does get shaky, and mine happens to get shaky very often, then it allows you to be able to slip back into your routine, do those previous older habits, and then seamlessly segue into the new habits that you want to do. So it gives kind of like a staging point, right? So the way that I came across this was I was thinking about it for a while, and there was this habit that I realized that I'd built off of another habit without even realizing I was doing it. And that habit was putting in my retainer after I brushed my teeth, because I recently, and by recently I mean 2 years ago, got my braces off. And so I put it might have been a year ago. Anyway, got my braces off. So after I brush my teeth, I put my retainer in so that I can keep my nice pearly, shiny, all in order. Now, the purpose for breaking all of this down is so that I could give it a test and, do a test run. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to just create the perfect schedule, exactly what I'd look for and what I'd want for in some kind of morning routine. Because I haven't really had a super good one of those ever since I got rid of school, which was a while ago. I say got rid of, but I graduated, it's really funny to say got rid of. This is kind of off the cuff if you haven't realized. So what I did is I got my perfect schedule in order, right? And I wanted to read for an hour and play piano for 30 minutes and practice Japanese and give myself a 30-minute morning run and things like that, right? And I want to do all of that within 2 hours. And I did not have enough time to be able to do all of that within 2 hours, so I either needed to increase the amount of time, that I'd be able to be accessible in the mornings, or I needed to wake up earlier. And I'm okay with either of those options, and I probably will have to just wake up earlier because of my work schedule. Now, what I did is I took the core habits that I wanted, and I stripped them down to their bare bones, and it was still too much, because you don't really want to shock your system with overload. You can only try to add so many new habits to your system before it becomes too much. So you can only do so many new habits at a time before it all just kind of creates chaos and just breaks the entire thing down. So I limited it to adding like 5 habits, okay? And it was like 5-minute run, reading for 5 minutes, piano for 5 minutes, and then Japanese, right? That's 4. So that's what the thing was. And the reason why it's 5 minutes instead of the full 30 minutes is so that it's way easier to get into. Because the other thing that I was realizing is that anything that has a high difficulty level to start will have a high difficulty level to continue long term, right? So you'll either find ways to get around that or find ways to make that easier in the long run. So you want to reduce the amount of barrier to entry to start all of these things off, and having anything that's longer than 10-ish minutes seems to be some kind of a problem. Anyway, that's just a bunch of different things that was going through my head. It's a thing that I'm practicing, might make a full video on at some point. We'll see, but I just wanted to talk about it for a little bit because, I was feeling kind of inspirational. Anyway,